It was the best of tech times, it was the worst of tech times. So I just realized that you can actually, with the current technology, this could be optimized later, but with the current technology, you can source separate and then you can apply various components of studios to a mix. So what are we doing here? So what I realized is one of the most sought after things right now is to mimic the fidelity of the high dollar studios. So the great realization is studio convolution transformation as a plugin. So essentially what you're doing is you split the main master track that you have that you want to upgrade or up fidelity, and you split the elements so that it's, the drums, the bass, the musical part, the backing, and the vocal. So within each of these components, you have the capacity to switch up the different kinds of microphones, to switch up the different room aesthetics, the acoustics of the room using the convolution technologies. This can mean not just the room, but the speaker. So basically, this is where the convolution factor sort of bleeds its way in. So it's a bleeding process into your production. I'm very excited about this because it brings together like everything that has been happening, and then I realized what are they really trying to do? They're trying to take like Abbey Road Studios or Sony Studios, and they're trying to take this studio and put it in your mix, but they're doing it in small incremental pieces, and it doesn't make sense as a whole cohesive thing until you realize what the end game that you want to do is. What you want to do is you want to have that engineer's touch with the high dollar technology, and you want to superimpose that into your mixes. So how cool would it be to have a plugin, which is doable right now, that can do just that? So in other words, the first thing you're going to need to do is source separate, so that you have the various things to sort of bleed in or mask in onto your material. So it's a dub. It's a dub at this point in my mind. But of course, when you blend in AI, I mean, AI could probably do this, with its way of masking things, whatever it's doing. I don't know. But so you can right now, just by separating these elements, you take the components. So the console goes on the bass, it goes on the drums, it goes on the backing, it goes on the vocal. Okay, so the console is applicable to all of these technologies. So what we're talking about here is not just a studio, but a mosaic of studios that you're capable of sort of superimposing into the mix that you're making. And I can't believe I didn't think about this sooner. Like, you probably don't, half people watching this probably don't even know what I'm talking about. But, you're going to be able to take whatever designer production facility of music and then put that into your production. Why would you not want to do that? So that's all I wanted to make a video about, is this idea to make the studios of the world, all around the world, and the technology and the precision instruments that they use, some idea of the techniques that they use, and to bleed them in to your productions. That's what we're going after when we're saying analog warmth, or digital is too stale, or it doesn't sound like it was made professionally or whatever. Well, how about a plugin where you can do this, or at least you can design a plugin, sort of Frankenstein the plugins together right now to be able to do this kind of thing, using mic modeling technology, using room modeling technology, using cabinet speaker modeling technologies, using, let's say, technique technique, design, sort of simulation. That's what I'm trying to say. So in other words, there's going to be things in studio or that engineers do that, there's not a modeling plugin for that right now. But you can do this. So for instance, like spectral plugins, they can do a lot of what the engineers were doing through physical recording processes. Like what I'm saying is the actual recording chains and the recording processes, that's something that's kind of proprietary. So that's dealing with a whole another element. You're also dealing with like the physical chains like that and the physical things that they do. So for instance, one engineer is going to ride the faders this way and another one's going to ride them another way. So that's another physical side of this where you're talking about, how they do things, from the human level. They're sort of custom ways of doing things. So, but you have an idea that this is conceivable and this is doable with the technology that exists. I might try to make a plugin like this as if I need another plugin to make, but something that can sort of slip in any given studio. So you could say, well, how does it sound if it was produced in this studio? How does it sound if it was produced in that studio? I'm not trying to take away the studio's ability to earn, money, because that's like saying, you're going to Amazon to buy, the product instead of going to the mall. Really, people still enjoy the mall, but the mall's kind of like, an additional experience that's kind of like, unfortunately, it's not keeping up with the times because of the financial system at play. So it's like, that's a whole political problem. But yes, I agree. However, the idea of being able to take, the UK studios and then try them on your mix. How would it have sounded if I had gone to such and such studio? That kind of idea. This is something not for me to do. This is something for super, obsessive, analytical, engineering-oriented people who are looking at things like A to B to C. Me, I'm like A to unicorn, this would never work. But if somebody with the right mentality to sort of say, well, this is exactly how they do it at Ocean Studios or Ocean Way Studios or whatever it's called. This is exactly how they do it at Sony Soundstage. This is exactly how they do it at Abbey Road Studios. I don't particularly like the Abbey sound. I'm just kind of mentioning that because that's just to give you an idea. But I like the idea of being able to take, like the sound of Nashville. Their sound is incredible. What they do with country music now is like more produced than what they do with pop music, unfortunately. And so it would be interesting to say, well, to bring that Nashville studio with that Nashville recording vocal. So for instance, one quick example, this has really gone on much longer than I wanted, but one quick example is, you take that incredible tonality that they get in the vocal chain of the Nashville studio. So then you say, well, we have the split, the source separation split of the master track. So then we hone in on the vocal, and then we say, well, flip it to the Nashville studio. And so then automatically, the chain that they do would be superimposed. So what? Now my mind's already jumped. This is totally up Ozone's alley. Ozone is an isotope ozone, because they're all over this stuff. They're like the tip of the spear in terms of conquering, the master fidelity of all of it. I mean, so I can't believe it. I would never have thought, coming from where they were and how it's developed, and because there were so many things happening at the time of the development of that company. But anyways, that's an example of like how you could easily say, well, how, because it would also affect the production. So in other words, if you say, I'm making a singer-songwriter's, piece of music, but you're going to try, what if you would have done the guitars in this studio or in that studio? How it would have altered in such a subtle way in some cases, and you could probably have a little wet dry. After all these zillions of things are taking place, you have your little wet dry knob so that you could bleed in that characteristics. Then you say to yourself, well, what happens if we say we want to blend in Nashville and Abbey Road and New York style, and you know what I mean? So you're layering on all of this technology of just the components, the engineering side of the studio. This is mind blowing to me. Bye bye.